I was 5. I was in a department store holding my dad's hand. Memories are hazy, but I remember one thing with great clarity. On one of the endless aisles was a shelf, and in the center was a CD. And on the front of the package was a yellow Lamborghini Murciélago. The yellow Murciélago was the featured car on the cover of this little game called Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. And the cinematic video that played shocked me. It was nothing like I had ever seen before. Even as someone who had never seen any of the cars shown on the video, I was immediately enraptured by the music, the chase, and my God, the Murciélago. There was wonder, yes, but at the time, words like Lamborghini, Aston Martin, Ferrari, they didn't mean anything to me. Nothing about them was inherently special. The only car I had been in was a 1999 Hyundai Elantra. I loved being in it, but looking out the window, all I saw was a depressing landscape of gray 90s Korean automobile scene. You see, there were rules to cars. They had to look like a box, they had to have a front and a back that looked like smaller boxes, they had to have 4 wheels of equal sizes, engine had to be in the front so you could load your toys in the back. They had to have 4 doors. Anything outside of that? It was inconceivable. But there it was, the Murciélago. It went against everything that a 6-year-old brain could imagine a car could be. Everything seemed wrong. Everything was out of place. It was too long. It sat too low. The mismatching wheels were too big. It was tremendous. Many regard this Lamborghini as a pivotal moment for the brand, from a company that used to make barely drivable, gun-blazing hell machines to surprisingly modest and elegant hell machines. The Murciélago was a production vehicle to be designed and produced after VW's acquisition for sure, but to me, the Murciélago was what defined Lamborghini. It's what I grew up with. They were the ones I had posters hanging on a wall, except I didn't because I didn't know that was a thing. The point being, I would have. Not the Countach or the Miura or even the original Diablo. It was the Murciélago and its devilish brother, Diablo 6.0. Perhaps then it's worth delving into how this generation of Lamborghini, the one that has had such an influence on my childhood and my perception of the brand today, started. Because it almost never happened. Let us consider Lamborghini in the year 1996. At the time, the sports car company was owned by Megatech, a Bermuda-registered Indonesian company. Now, what's important here is not that Megatech was owned by a guy who allegedly hired hitmen to assassinate a judge who sentenced him to prison. No, what's important is that it's an Asian company, which we'll come back to it later. By then, the company was really only offering one model, the Diablo, and the leadership at the time, led by Vittorio Di Capua, pushed for a structural turnaround for the Italian firm with chronic financial back pains. This led to the beginning of the development of the Super Diablo and the Baby Diablo. The two names will, after some considerable amount of time, manifest themselves as the Murciélago and the Gallardo respectively. But let us shelve the Baby Diablo for now. What interests me is this mysterious Super Diablo, and no, this was not the Murciélago. Because the Murciélago we know today was not even on the table when this Diablo successor was being discussed. Even before Di Capua came in, Lamborghini was already in motion to develop the successor to the Diablo. And the new flagship V12 Lamborghini had to be successful. It had to be impactful. It wasn't just for the money, the very fate of the brand would be determined by it. And for a brand that had established itself with trailblazing designs, this new Lamborghini of the new millennia had large tires to fill. And who better to ask to design it? The man behind pretty much every Lamborghini from the 350 GT to the Countach to the Diablo, well, not really, was called up to design the Diablo successor. Labeled the L147, the car was to be based on the chassis of the Diablo SV, but with a bigger engine. A big engine needed big cooling systems, but working within the restraints of the Diablo chassis and limited funding posed a challenge. And in Lamborghini's case, a pair of two very large challenges. For fairly obvious reasons, Gandini's Acosta was met with severe under-enthusiasm. Even if you could, with immense effort, look past its bulbous front, the two enormous air intakes in the rear screamed, "I don't belong here." The engine simply needed more air, and the quickest solution was bigger intakes. But Lamborghini was pretty adamant on making a Diablo successor work, so they commissioned a second design study simultaneously to none other than Zagato. Yes, a famous coach-building firm that has graced this earth with beauties such as DB4 GTZ, the DB4 GTZ, and yes, the DB4 GTZ. Being the only coach-building firms in the mid-90s to be armed with sophisticated computer-aided design software, in 1997, Zagato presented the Canto. Penned by a man, the Canto was received just about as well as it could have for something that looks like the Canto. Once again, the Canto was plagued with the same affliction as it had the Acosta, cooling issue. At least this time around, Lamborghini showed more interest in developing the Canto further, and it was selected to be developed into a proper running prototype. But as this development was going on in the foreground, in the background, there was yet another change of ownership. There were efforts at Lamborghini, even before the VW acquisition, to acquire the Audi's V8 engine for the baby Diablo that would succeed the now out-of-production Jalpa. After being in negotiations with Audi for 7 to 8 months, Audi just decided to buy Lamborghini outright. But at the time, Lamborghini was still owned by an Indonesian company called Megatech. Remember how I said earlier that this being an Asian company was important? Well, 97 and 98 was when the Asian financial crisis hit. And it hit Indonesia too. Hard. The stars aligned in the year 1998, when Audi's desire to absorb Lamborghini's performance vehicle engineering know-how came about during the Asian financial crisis that hit Megatech, who was now looking to sell its struggling Italian sports car company. A deal was settled at $110 million, and Lamborghini once again had switched owners. With fresh funding from eager owners, the development of the Canto picked up its pace. The running prototype of the Canto was even photographed and spotted testing around the test track called Nardo. Rumored to have even reached 350 kilometers an hour, which, with those giant nostrils, may very well have been true. It was gearing up to become the true successor to the Diablo. Lamborghini was so confident in this that they even put out a press release promising the fans that their new flagship V12 supercar would be unveiled in the 1999 Geneva Motor Show. Now, I could not find the original copy of this press release and therefore cannot confirm the validity of the following information, but apparently the Canto was supposed to be priced at $250,000 with limited production of just 400 units. I mean, if this were true, that means Lamborghini was really serious about the Canto. It was to succeed the now aging Diablo and herald in the new age of Lamborghini into the new millennia. This very well could have been our Murciélago, defining the design language of the subsequent Aventador and now Revuelto. But it never happened. And in the list of broken promises, this may just be the one we're grateful for. Ferdinand Piëch, the chairman of the VW at the time, and also the man behind the decision to buy Lamborghini, was a man with very firm hands, as in he made very bold decisions and demanded that they be seen through. And when he saw what his brand new Italian car company was proposing as the successor to the Diablo, he was very unhappy. Very unhappy. Even with redesigns incorporating a smaller pair of nostrils, there was no saving the Canto. Both the Acosta and the Canto design proposals were terminated, and with both Italian designs out of the way, the Germans gave the job to a Belgian. And what resulted was an absolute icon. The engine was tuned up from a 6-liter to a 6.2-liter V12. And And paired with Look Dunkerwolk's strikingly elegant body design came the Murciélago, with the best feature to be ever fitted to a car: rising rear air intakes. I'm not sure if people today still feel as though the Murciélago marked a clear departure from its roots of flamboyant and outrageous visual language, but let's actually think about that. The Countach is thought of as a definitive moment for Lamborghini's visual brand language when we began equating wedge-shaped cars with the Golden Bull. But when I look at the original Countach that shook the 70s automotive world, it wasn't the knock-a-duct on the side or even the big air intakes on the rear that made it so memorable. It was the purity of its wedge-shaped form. The car had no graphic distractions, no jutting wheel arches, or even V-shaped wings. Its silhouette alone made it an automotive icon, a Lamborghini icon. It was the stalwart basis for all the extravagant styling that followed for decades. And it was this purity of the form that allowed the blossoming of a vibrant visual language for Lamborghini. And the Murciélago, at least to me, was the perfect recreation of this design language for the new millennia. The unbroken, sweeping roofline that widens at the rear to house its colossal, naturally aspirated V12, and the rear intakes that rise up like a freaking living, breathing beast. How more Lamborghini does it get than this? As someone who was born in the 90s, Murciélago was the definitive Lamborghini, and the one that will inevitably be my point of reference for all new Lamborghinis to come. Hey, thanks for watching. This is the first video in my quest to reignite the passion I once had for cars. I know it's still there, and I'd like to get it back. Now, if you liked this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and join me on my personal quest to rediscover what about cars that made it so special for all of us. And I'll see you on the next one.